Hi everybody, I'm Gareth. I'm a senior developer from Zucha. I'm also the accessibility tools track lead, which got me involved in Drupal CMS, and I love, more than anything else, reverse engineering stuff. So I've dug into recipes quite a bit. I submitted this talk and kind of thought this is going to force me to learn what recipes are in Drupal CMS. I do this with distributions quite often, find out how other people are doing stuff to see what's going on. And yeah, I panicked when I got into it, so you'll see. So, quick introduction. This has been covered probably in Baddy's talk, so I'll maybe just skip through this. The end bit is probably important. This is a high level, and I think it's going to be high speed overview of what's going on in Drupal CMS. So what are recipes? This again is covered by Baddy's keynote. Pre-configured setups. Announced at DrupalCon was 14 recipes in the works. Yeah, what we got was 28 recipes and some more extra ones from Core as well. So that's why this is going to be high speed. I also learned that you can't have a presentation without fist bump kid. Okay, so how do the recipes all break down? We've got some that come installed. Once you get Drupal CMS up and running, there's already a whole bunch of stuff installed. There's quite a few content types and then some extra tools. I broke them down in this talk into this kind of way, but there's a lot of chat going on within the issue queues about how these should be named and classified and things like that, and there's an issue there that you can go and take part if you're interested in what's going on there. So what's in a recipe? When you put a recipe into your code, this is what you kind of get. This is the heart of Drupal CMS, the starter recipe. It has a config folder, which is very much like the config that you get with a module, or whenever you use config management, if you do config export, you'll see the same YAML files that are used in this. Anything in that folder gets applied to your site. It's part of the magic of the recipe installer. The content, that is again YAML files, and it can be images, menu items, blog posts, these kind of things. Most of this stuff you can use something like Drupal, a default content module to export your content, dump it into that, and then get your recipe to install it. The test folder is largely to test that your recipe applies properly, and goes into that. The testing of the actual stuff that goes on within your recipe is left to the modules, etc. And the license file is kind of a normal just addition, and that leaves the composer JSON file, which we're about to look at, and this new recipes YAML file. So the Drupal CMS composer file that's half of it. And if you've ever seen a composer file before, you'll see that the require bit is all the modules that gets installed whenever you do a composer install with this recipe in place. So you get automatic updates, which is a new module that allows you to keep your site up to date. BPMN IO and ECA work closely together. That's event conditions action is ECA, and the BPMN IO module is a kind of it's a graphical kind of tool to help you figure out what your events are going to do. ECA is like Rules 2.0. It's a big, massive overhaul. So you also get dashboard. These Drupal CMS ones, they're actually other recipes that it's installed, and what this list doesn't show you is that Project Browser and Token also get installed whenever you install the Drupal CMS starter. The recipe YAML file is a brand new file for recipes. and it has a number of kind of key features. It looks a wee bit like, if you've done any coding of modules or themes, it's a wee bit like the info YAML file. It contains your name and descriptions and stuff, and everything essentially under that recipes key is the other recipes that need to be installed before Drupal CMS recipe can apply all its stuff. So you'll see the top 4 recipes there are actually core recipes. They're new things that came out with Drupal 10.3. A lot of the standard installation profile has now converted a lot of stuff over to recipes as well, so they're all available. And then a big list of Drupal CMS recipes there. They get installed, and then Easy Email Express, which is another recipe. Okay, so the next part of the recipes file is install. This is the bit of the YAML file that tells the recipes installer, install all these modules, run through them, and get automated cron, which I think is a core module. Automatic updates, obviously we saw that, and automatic update extensions is another part. You'll have seen them in the composer YAML file. And then ECA files, modules. So these modules all basically get installed with this recipe. The next part is where the recipes bit gets a bit interesting. The config key, this is still the same file. This is what I think the heart of recipes is. You can see there that we've got an import command down on line 44 there, and it's basically giving you a list of modules and what to do with the config for that. So Drupal CMS Olivero, that asterisk means get all the config from that recipe and just install it here. Image, it's saying 2 particular image styles need to be brought in. We've got some Olivero date format stuff, and then some user config. They need to be installed by this. So that import command is the first kind of what I think is an important one. The next one is actions. This is another part of the recipes thing, is that actually other config that already exists within the website, you can do actions on them. And what this recipe is actually saying is look at the package manager settings, find obviously additional trusted composer plugins, and right above that it says do a simple config update, and obviously apply then that tbasher SPI, add that library into the allowed trusted plugins. It's also saying project browser in the admin settings, do a simple config update and allow these projects, and we'll see that a wee bit later on, what that looks like in the front end, but basically those recipes then get allowed in project browser. I'm not going to go too far more into the coding of recipes and everything like that, because I can see people glazing over. If you're interested, there's some really great documentation on there. The main page is the distributions recipe project page. It's got links to the recipe author guide, which gives you some great information about a lot of the stuff that's in that recipes file. The config actions list is also listed in there as well, and so you can find out, you can do things like clone content, clone this, update that, get rid of this. If you're interested in recipes but don't want to go that deep into it, there is now a recipe generator module which will help you kind of take a site that you've built and you go, right, I want to save this. It'll allow you to export that. And just recently, the recipe installer kit has been abstracted from Drupal CMS itself, so you no longer need to clone all of Drupal CMS to be able to apply all these recipes and things. You can use this installer kit. So important notes. And Barry said something this morning that I wasn't aware of. You can't unapply. I didn't think you could unapply recipes, but maybe that's a new addition. This is a really it's a quick moving kind of landscape. As far as I was aware, that recipes were applied to your site. It changes the config, and you uninstall it by kind of almost capturing that in your git config when you export your config. Because once recipes are applied, they become part of your own site configuration, and then you deal with that however you want to. If you do that on a live site, you just run wild. If you do it on a development site and then push it up, it's a part of your management workflow. So, going back to the starter, these recipes are installed, and you can see that the top 4 there are the core recipes. I'm not actually going to touch on them at all because you'll get them with core now as well. So when you install core, anything you see there, those 4 recipes will be included in that. This is where we get, believe it or not, we're going to get quicker. Drupal CMS Admin UI, that installs 4 new modules, and this is the beauty of Drupal CMS, is it's not just core, you're now including other things. So we've got the coffee module, dashboard, gin, and simple add more. The config file that's there, it sets up some blocks and menus, and it sets up gin as an admin theme as well. Okay, Drupal anti-spam. This changed as well a little bit as it was being developed. I guess it's important to know that as others have mentioned, the 1.0 version of this was a big mountain to climb to get something installed, and there was a gate that was in place where modules needed to work. They needed to be full versions, and so quite often we were getting close to the end and thinking, oh, we need to take back some of the features just because we can't get full versions. So we did get capture, friendly capture. I think friendly capture and friendly capture challenge were added to replace anti-bot, I think, and honeypot. And then the configuration sets those all up and allows the admin users to bypass those protections. Drupal CMS authentication. Again, we've got that BPMN IO and the ECA, that's event condition action. What they do is they set up some workflows. So whereas I used to always install something like login toboggan to get users to kind of the right place once they'd logged in, or to whenever people log out, so it doesn't just give them you've logged out, it takes you back to the home page. That kind of workflow is now being managed by ECA, and also we've got the 403s redirecting to user login, and I think I used to use another module. There's an R403 to login page module, so they're being used. So I found that really interesting. That's just a different approach to some stuff. Okay, this is the one content type that you get out of the box without doing anything, is Drupal CMS page. It depends on another recipe, which is the content type base, which we'll look at in a second. But this one essentially doesn't install any extra modules, but it does set up layout builder, and it figures out what permissions it's going to put in place and sets up a basic editorial workflow for itself. But it's also based on the content type base, which does a lot of the heavy lifting for all the content types that we'll look at later. You can see that it depends on the editor role from core, but also a new recipe as well, Drupal CMS image, and I think all the content types have images in place. We also have auto save form. Again, we've got BPMNL, ECA to kind of help with some workflow stuff. Link it, path auto, token, trash, scheduler, and scheduler content moderation integration. So basically, all of them are kind of allowing you to schedule publishing of your modules, of your content later. When you delete content, it doesn't get deleted straight away. It goes into the trash, and I think you can configure stuff so that it gets deleted later, a bit of protection there, and then just some nice permissions and workflows set up. We'll have a look now at Drupal CMS image. This depends on the core media type. It sets up focal point, responsive image, and SVG images, and gives you quite a lot of image styles and some responsive image breakpoint stuff as well. You'll see as we look through this, there's a lot. You've got a lot of resolutions, different aspect ratios, and these are all available to the content editor. So whatever size they want, they can choose that in their editor, and we've got responsive images as well. So it means that the breakpoints that are already set up, those images should all respond nicely. Okay, privacy basic. Again, we've got the BPM and IO. Claro is a new module to me. I think it's pretty fresh, and it's used heavily to manage your cookies. And the menu link attributes in ECA are basically put in place so that I think every user gets their own management page to allow them to manage their privacy and consent. The other thing that the Privacy Basic does is, if I'm thinking, remembering rightly, there's a content page that gives you something that you can then edit and add your own privacy policy to it. So it's just as a reminder, you get that as an unpublished page. Moving on, remote video. This is, it uses the remote video media type, and it ties in as well to the privacy thing as well, so that if you do add Vimeo or YouTube videos, then obviously they come with their own third-party modules. This is quite nice in that the ECA module actually updates your own privacy policy to say, actually, we're using YouTube. That comes with its own set of privacy concerns. SEO basic. This is a starter point for the SEO stuff. There's actually another SEO tools recipe that comes with Drupal CMS, but this does easy breadcrumb, path auto, redirect, and puts those in place so that if you go straight away to your Lighthouse report, it's going to give you some kind of performance kind of thumbs up. Yeah, and it also does things like your 404 errors. It stops them logging to Watchdog and moves them out into their own view, which I thought was quite nice because 404s, sometimes if you're getting hit by a lot of spam and crawlers, then they can fill up your error logs. I'm not quite sure what the cosmetic breadcrumb stuff was to do with. I'm presuming that it was just for the crawlability of the site, to give Google a bit of an idea of what the hierarchy looked like. The last module that comes out of the box is the Easy Email, and it installs basically Easy Email and some other recipes that are actually, I think they've actually been contributed up to Drupal.org, so you can compose or require them. And that sets up all core emails so that they all go out with nice HTML formatting rather than the standard text-only stuff that you get out of core. So yeah, whenever you're going through the installation of Drupal CMS, that's basically what you get if you choose nothing. You also have, as a part of the installation process, which is something I don't think you get at the moment, is you get this idea that you can pick and choose what content types you want to be installed. I think the original idea was going to be, well, I want a news website, and then it would pick some, but I assume that maybe Emma's work was kind of going, well, that's a bit confusing and a bit opinionated. Maybe we'll just give people the choice. So when you install Drupal CMS, you get an idea of the content types that you can, and you can click 1, 3, all, none. Or you can even skip it and just go with the standard. Obviously, these can be installed later as well. So, blog recipe, this is going to get a bit repetitive because they're all kind of based on each other, and they're also based on the core one as well. But the add content by bundle means you get a nice picture. Whenever you're in your node editing thing, you can add a blog, and there's a button there for add blog. But the blog recipe comes with better exposed filters. If you were in the search one, the search talk earlier, selective better exposed filters was a module I was going to suggest to them, which kind of changes exposed filters a little bit. But basically you get some demo content with tagging already in place. You get a basic page with the view listing. The view is actually a block, not the view being the page itself, which kind of probably breaks the Ajax thing that was talked about earlier. But that's all positioned within Layout Builder. And with the blog, you get the latest posts and related posts blocks as well that you can position in an RSS feed. And that's what it looks like. You can see the selective better exposed filters in the top there. It's got a wee button where you can tick that, and it will filter your list to show only Drupal. If there's other tags in place, you can obviously filter by them as well, and you can see the wee RSS feed at the bottom. Case study recipes, that's almost identical, except you get company name, link, and logo. But again, it's basic page with listing view positioned in Layout Builder. We'll maybe try and do that as we go through this. That's going to be all of them, so we'll get a wee chant going. Basic page with listing view. Latest and related case studies. Interestingly, these that doesn't appear in the standard out-of-the-box one. I only discovered where it appears when I kind of went devel generate and made 5 of each content types, just to see right down at the bottom there, just under the tags, there's actually related posts, and they only appear when you have more than one, because the one is obviously excluded because it's you don't want a related post that's the same post that you're just looking at. Okay. Events, I really like this recipe. Again, we've got add to content, but this one has address, add to cal, augment, geocode or geofield leaflet. I think I've always been used to just adding Google Maps to everything, and I really liked the way this added leaflet rather than Google Maps, because it means you get a map and you get geocoding and everything like that without having to give all your details to Google. Again, basic page, positioned in Layout Builder, past and upcoming blocks, and we've got a wee demo of the events. You'll see that Claro steps in on this as well, and that's where your ECA module comes in. You can see there that there's external cookies available, so you have to click that to say I'll accept that. And again, we've got the non-visible blocks at the bottom because there's no more content. In case you didn't spot that, I'm just going to show you the Claro bit again. Love that. Okay, news. It's very similar to the blog one, related in posts, basic page. I'll kind of just sort of move on from this one. It's almost identical, but it just looks ever so slightly different. Person profile. Again, similar to the case studies, you've got some extra fields, you've got tags, email, phone number, and job title, and that's what it looks like. It's got a wee bit of extra styling, so it looks slightly different to the other ones, which was interesting. And projects, that is actually identical to case studies. You've got the logo at the top there, and you'll have seen in case studies that at the bottom there's the link off to the company numbers and company website. Any of those, like I said, can be installed after installation. They can be installed during the installation, and you can use the command line if you do that, to use drush recipe, which is a new command, and you just point to the recipe, and that will install your recipe. Or in Project Browser, you can also apply these. You've got the blog there that can be applied, and a hint to what's coming up next. There is these additional functional recipes that come with Drupal CMS. You've got the accessibility tools, which basically installs editorially at the moment. Gives you some stuff, we'll see it in a minute. AI Assistant is another recipe that sets up the chatbot, AI-generated alt text. Google Analytics will set up your analytics. Forms gives you the web form module. Search functionality, you get Search API all set up. And the SEO tools, which is again, like I mentioned before, is different to the SEO Basic. This will set up some extra kind of helpers for your nodes. This is the demo page that comes out of the accessibility tools module, or recipes, should I say. This is an unpublished page, and it's a page basically with a lot of errors in it. As you go through and edit it, you can get your 12 in the bottom right corner there down to 0, and that'll give you an overview of how to use editorially. The AI Assistant, there's a lot of modules involved here. You've got AI Agent, AI Image Alt Text. You've got Anthropic and OpenAI is AI agents. And then CommonMark is Markdown library, just to help you with your pre-prompts, etc. And it basically, it taps into another new feature of recipes, which is during the application of the recipe, you can actually take input. So rather than installing a module and then you have to go and find the configuration page and then you have to get during the process, you can add stuff in, and if you make your recipe such a way, it'll actually take you through the process of setting it up fully. And this sets up your AI. So this is the installer. You can choose which agent or provider to use, stick in your API key, and then within another click, you've got your AI agent. And that's the pre-prompt that's set up, the instructions there. It tells, it's basically set up so that your OpenAI agent knows to restrict all its stuff to the stuff that you've got set up on your site, and only talk about Drupal. It would be rubbish if it went off and went, if you want to create some content, open up your WordPress site, and you don't want that happening. Web forms, again, nice demo. This is setting up contact form, and you've got CAPTCHA and also Honeypot kind of set up to use web form. Quite straightforward. Google Analytics, again, is using that installer, taking your Google tag ID, and it will go off and it will set up your container and everything like that, so that's all ready for you. Search recipe will set up Search API and autocomplete, and it'll also set up API exclude so that you can actually exclude stuff from your searches. And rather than having to basically hard code a simple search form, you could use a simple search form module, and this is all set up for you. And basically it creates your search server, and it uses a database to do that. I think there was a hope that we could maybe put Elasticsearch or Solr in there, but it was just way easier just to say, right, well, we can replace that later if needs be. Let's get a DB search and make sure that all nodes are searched. Again, this is a kind of a standard setup, rendered HTML. That all goes into your search provider, and then the title is given a bit of a boost, just to make sure that it is given weight, and the search page ends up looking like that. Again, it is a search page positioned in Layout Builder. That's what the autocomplete looks like, and you can see that the search term is actually highlighted on the search results there. So it's nicely set up. I think this might be the last one. SEO tools. Again, we've got a lot of extra bits there. Yoast is, I think, quite similar to editorially in that it gives users a bit of feedback whenever they're creating content and gives them nice nudges to help create SEO-focused content. This will give you meta tag and robots and simple sitemap, all that kind of stuff set up, and it means that your site can be really well indexed, and actually it'll perform well in those searches. When you enable this recipe, this kind of form gets added to the bottom of your nodes. So when you're typing your content in, you've got, you can override the SEO title. You can put in your own description if you don't think the default is going to be good. There is defaults already set up. So, the header image will actually become a part of your, Facebook tagging and what have you. But if you want to override that, you can use these, and you can just see SEO analysis at the bottom there. If you've ever used SEO Yoast, that's what that bit is. And it has nice wee flags, and it'll have red lights saying you don't have enough keywords, or your content's too long, it's too wordy. I think it's a really nice module. So what we didn't get, there's a lot there, but there's still, I know a lot of stuff was ripped out because we couldn't get full versions made available. Experience Builder is still on its way, and I think Dries is going to be demoing bits of it at DrupalCon next week, or 2 weeks. When is it? I can't remember. Like I said, many modules were removed, but I think the plan is to kind of, as they get more stable, they're going to be added back in. So there's still a lot of work happening. I know that everybody was really excited about a trial experience, so being able to just go to Drupal.org, press a button, and have Drupal CMS right in front of you was something that was looking really promising for a good while, and then it just kind of just ran aground as one or two things just proved too weighty to be able to do in time for the release. So I know that there's still hope that something can happen there. One of the big things is what we didn't want was people to spend like half a day building this amazing website, and then they go, right, I want to take this and do something, or show my boss, how do I put this on a real world server, and exporting and moving it somewhere else was something that was a bit of a challenge, I think. So that's coming. And I think recently there's been 2 new tracks announced, so we're getting a lot of documentation, and multilingual is going to be added. So yeah, 3-month timelines. It's going to be tight again, but lots of new stuff, and I could probably do this talk in 3 months' time, and it'll be twice as big. So I maybe won't promote that. Any questions? No? Let's go for lunch. Great. No, only joking. Ask away.
I have actually one.
Hang on.
So, based on the fact that you created all these recipes for...
Me, personally, yes.
Yes, yeah, you personally did each and every one. You asked the team, of course. Is there a case where I can actually dig into maybe like the search SEO recipe and start dismantling actually what you did and take them and put them on my production sites?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's the beauty, and this is what I love about this, is that reverse engineering stuff, because I used to do that when local.gov came out. I was like, oh, let's see what they're doing. And I've done that with the microsites bit, and I've kind of ripped it apart and went, what can I use here? And recipes, I think, is going to be even better for that, because you might be able to just take the SEO recipe and just move it, drop it into your site and go site apply, and put that then becomes a part of your site as well. But yeah, there's a Drupal CMS project. You can go there, you can look at the source code, all the recipes are all listed out there. One of the reasons why there's Drupal CMS and Drupal Core is that at the moment all the recipes are in Drupal CMS, and when you do Composer install, all it does is kind of go, these recipes, I'll move them into here. I think the hope is that these recipes will start becoming projects themselves. I know there's a lot of work to do on the Drupal.org website to support another project type. So I think, like I said, maybe the accessibility tools will become its own module that you can just do Composer require, accessibility tools, recipe, and then it will become a part of your site. But to dig in right now, go to the Drupal CMS project, look at the source code and you'll see all the recipes listed. All 28 are there. And you can just click on it. You can open up the recipe YAML. I kind of give you a bit of an introduction to it there.
And then I have another question, because you hinted it on the last slide. What about the documentation? Because like everything, we are very good at developing shit, but we cannot put that into text at all.
I'm gonna maybe should have come to Emma's talk. The distribution recipes project actually has got. I looked at it this week and I was like blown away, and I was like, wow, that's actually really good. It walks you through each of the commands that are available. It tells you what you need, what's required, what the difference between strict and lax is in these, and it's pretty good. But yeah, I think it might be. I want to say Lullabot are going to turn Drupalize Me into a documentation font, and I think they're going to. They're looking for sponsors to kind of look at documentation as a whole. So it's coming. You any good at catching? Oh, no, I'm terrible at throwing. Sorry.
Right, thank you very much for your talk, very interesting. I just want to think you touched on it, but I just want to say out loud, we use default content module for the export and then a recipe for the import to seed a production site for a fresh build yesterday, and it worked really well. So I just want to say even louder, like, to me, that's like one of the best content seeding experiences that I've had with Drupal. But it didn't work with Layout Builder very well. So I know it's very specific, but or just generally question to the room, like, are people using that with Layout Builder components? We have to sort of do our own solution for the Layout Builder components.
Yeah, I think Layout Builder. That's a minefield. There's a whole other talk there about because where do you start? You know, because I think the community itself at the moment is kind of split between panels. It used to be panels and Layout Builder, panels, and it used to, paragraphs to use that or Layout Builder, and then with Experience Builder on the way, I think there's probably a lot of hesitancy about how we're going to merge those kind of things together and build something that suits all three camps. I don't know. I'm hoping that because it's a part of this, that will be thought about, and actually what is built is going to be something that's going to be, properly, become an ecosystem in itself.
And very quickly, have you tried using AI to generate recipes? And does that work at all?
I don't know where Jamie is. I haven't tried it myself. Interesting.
Not massive. I think what we've done so far is kind of using it to help kind of gather the bits of information for it more. But most of the recipes we've been generating are actually configuring AI to do specific tasks. But I think kind of that's definitely the direction we're going, and we're kind of exploring bits with Drush and various other bits like that of AI getting mixed into the process of configuring all that stuff as well, to kind of make that a bit more streamlined and to kind of simplify. One of the problems with AI is there's a lot of kind of prerequisite knowledge of how to talk to the AI to get it to do what you want and things like that. And actually, one of the things AI is quite good at is knowing how to talk to itself and generate those things itself. So we're trying to get down that route as well.
Why don't we bounce that ball? Yeah, okay, go, then there, yeah.
Can you reapply recipes on top of each other, the same one over time? So I think this will be useful as your product develops. You want to have new features on that same recipe. Can you do that?
I think technically, yes. I know Project Browser itself, once you've clicked install, I found it really difficult to get it to allow me to install again. I think you could probably do Drush recipe and just point it to the same recipe and just reapply it over and over again. But then I guess you do risk, if you install the recipe and then tweak it and then you click install again, it'll just reset everything. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's designed to become a part of the configuration management workflow. I think we've got config split and stuff like that to kind of help with that.
So is there plans to use configuration update or the optional configurations with recipes?
Well, once you've applied the recipe, yeah, you just do config export. It becomes a part of your workflow then. I think that's what the hope is that this will be, rather than being tied to the way distributions used to have to be. You have to wait for your recipe to be updated and then, you know.
Okay,
I
so it's
think-
just like an initial install of a site.
Yeah, I think that's what the use case is trying to solve, is that initial install. It's, yeah.
If you want to read a long thread on the Slack, I think it's in the Drupal CMS channel or the recipes channel, with a bunch of the people who maintain distributions about discussing if it would be possible to do more config updates. You'll find a long.
Okay. I'll join it.
Right, it can go to you then, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. G-Bomb. That was really interesting. I'm a non-developer. I used to be a developer. I don't develop anymore. What I think is absolutely brilliant about recipes is it's distilling best practice. But my concern is it's distilling best practice and particularly at the moment aimed very squarely at Drupal CMS. I'm not saying Drupal CMS is dumbing down the Drupal experience. Do you think it's likely that those Drupal CMS recipes will become de facto solutions for agencies to use on Drupal core websites, or do you think they'll go their own ways?
There is actually a page on Drupal.org that's a recipe book. I don't know what. It's a page, and it's already and again, recipes I guess are opinionated. So two agencies will probably have a different. You know, they'll go, well, we want this, you know, we want the title field to have an image right underneath it, and then somebody else might want the image to come after the tags. So I think recipes, you could go really diverse with it, and then, you know, each set of agencies have their own set of recipes. You know, there's a password policy recipe, for example, and I wouldn't use it because it doesn't work with the way I like password policy set up. So I'm like, well, do I create my own then? But then it's like that, like we already have, you know, maybe 3 or 4 search modules. Do we want just Drupal.org to be hundreds and hundreds of recipes? I don't
think
know.
one of the benefits is that certainly with Drupal CMS, the community has rallied around those recipes. So we're seeing lots of more eyes, lots of more developer time actually focused on those recipes. So I think they could become the de facto solutions, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think some people will just move away into their own recipe world.
Yeah, and I think if you think about it, you know, I talk often about having a skyscraper, and this is allowing you to start your descent to the top at floor 75 rather than starting at the ground level.
Cool. Where was the next question?
Right over there. It's a chuck box. Chuck it. Hey.
So I just wanted to add something you mentioned earlier about Drupal CMS recipes being split into separate projects. Mm-hmm. There's already a thing called Drupal CMS bot, which is a fake user which basically automatically creates each recipe as its own project. Huh. So you can either go to the Drupal CMS bot user, or you can just Google Drupal CMS bot, and it basically gives you a list of the projects under it, which is kind of handy. Whether you can apply them to a normal Drupal site, your mileage may vary. Mm-hmm. But my actual question was, do you know, are there plans for upgrade paths for Drupal CMS recipes that basically once you have installed Drupal CMS, it's no longer, it's basically a Drupal 11 site. So when Drupal CMS 1.1 comes out, will there be a way of applying the Drupal 1.1 stuff?
I'm not sure that is in the roadmap, but I don't think, like I said earlier, I don't think there's anything to stop you just reapplying the new recipe. It might come to a point where, if I kind of add 2 or 3 modules to the accessibility tools track, that somebody then could download the latest version of that, run install. But it would essentially overwrite your existing config, and it would kind of almost reset it. So if you had any bespoke configuration that you'd added to it, it would just undo it. Yeah. Ready?
Are there any plans to do any kind of quality control of recipes? Because you just kind of mentioned that there's different ways of going with passport policies. I look at Drupal CMS and think, you've got 2 identical content types. That's a really bad practice. I would never do that. So there's probably different ideas. And as site builders, we know we can actually configure a site really insecure. So will there be any kind of quality control when recipes go on Drupal? Yeah.
And it's an interesting idea about adding quality control. There is a working group that, I didn't just get to pick and choose what I added to the recipe. I had to come up with a proposal, and it was approved. So there is, I suppose, a gate there that recipes won't become a part of Drupal CMS without a bit of vetting and about a bit of justification to some point.
And in general, because if people can kind of start adding recipes to Drupal.org, we might get very badly configured.
But then I guess that kind of feeds into the beauty of open source. The modules themselves could be, there's I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's the bad idea module, and it basically opens up your module and it says, do not install this.
But we have a security team for that.
You can upload modules that completely open up your site to any kind of hacker or whatever. So yeah, there is always the risk that recipes will be created that do things in a bad way. But I would imagine that being an open source community, as soon as that happens, somebody will step in, create an issue in the issue queue and go, this recipe's terrible, don't use it, without this patch applied, because this will close it down. And you would like to think that the ecosystem that we've built means we're going to vet each other almost.
So do we get a security team for recipes?
Well, I think the hope is that recipes will become a part of Drupal.org, and then the recipes can then, I would imagine, they'd be able to opt into the security team's monitoring. And I know that the security team itself doesn't go out and audit each module, but there is that idea that actually we're policing each other. So if you spot something that's not, you can send it to the security team, and then they'll take action on it. Anybody else?
Lunch?
Lunch?